Hello, my friends. This is Brent Heuris once again with a video for you on the subject of sustainable high-level productivity. So the title of this video is Productivity is an Emergent Quality. And if there were to be a subtitle for this video, it would be, It is not a product of forcing energy. And so what I'm going to do in the video is I'm going to discern just briefly between forcing, and I'll define also this emergent quality term that I'm using here. And then I'll get into the 5 qualities that if you bring them online and combine them, productivity emerges as a natural and inevitable result. And so I'll list out the qualities, and if you find that you're succeeding in a few of them, that's good. If you're deficient in one or many of them, then I'll share with you some things that you can do to bolster and buttress them back up so that productivity can emerge in your life. And that will be a wrap. That's what we're doing. So let us begin. Productivity is not a matter of forcing. So I say this a lot, and this is a course that I come back to many times, like in these videos and in my work with people. And the reason being is that there's just a basic cultural idea out there in the ether that we all believe that when it comes to being productive, when it comes to doing our work and becoming self-actualized and, succeeding and accomplishing, that there's this big forcing element that's involved. We all just seem to believe it, that you have to force yourself to work. You have to, and, we have to ask and answer questions like, how do I get myself to wake up, on time and do the work? And how do I get myself to stop procrastinating? And how do I be stronger with myself and more forceful with myself? And, there was this time when I was like, doing so well and I was getting so much done and I'm not doing it anymore. And how do I get back on track? And it's all innocent. Like, it makes sense that we'd come at it from this way, and that was, in my own personal history too. So I was there as well. But I found, and you probably find in your own life, that whenever we attempt some sort of forcing pattern or forcing energy on ourselves, that generally speaking, it's unsustainable. It doesn't last. It falls through. As soon as willpower runs out, and willpower inevitably runs out if we are relying on it as a long-term strategy, then whatever it is that we're holding up with our willpower, it will collapse. So that doesn't work. And so we need a better strategy, a better long-term strategy than willpower. And so that's just basically why forcing doesn't work. So you might think like, okay, well, great. Okay, sounds good. But I really do have to force myself to do these things that I don't want to do. So what do I do about that? So that's what we're going to get into here. So I have 5 qualities that if you bring these qualities online, so if you engage with them and focus on them and take some time to bring them online in your life, then through the combination of these being online, productivity will emerge. I'm going to quickly define for you what I mean by emergent quality. So it's very simple. It's like when you take parts and bring them together, and then something emerges through the combination of these parts. So for example, if you take 2 hydrogens and 1 oxygen and you bring them together, you have a water molecule. And if you take a whole bunch of water molecules and bring them together, suddenly you have water. And there's this kind of strange, wonderful, paradoxical quality about emergent characteristics and emergent qualities, because when you look at oxygen and hydrogen on its own, there's nothing about these things that would suggest that water is in them, that it's like written in them, that like they come together and it must be water. You would never guess through the combination of hydrogen and oxygen that you would get water. It's only in retrospect that once these things come together, you go, oh, right, yeah, that's how you get water. You bring these things together. But there are all sorts of other stuff out there that you combine them in different ways, and then other emergent qualities come out as a result. So that's kind of a fun thing. A different example would be, say, if you have somebody who's juggling and you have somebody who's an acrobat, and if you have somebody who's a clown, these are all like independent things on their own, but you bring them together and suddenly you have a circus. You have a traveling circus. And everything that's involved with that. I'm sure you can think of all sorts of examples. Take a whole bunch of bricks. Like bricks are nothing on their own. They're nothing on their own. They're just bricks, right? But you stack them together. Now you have a wall. You put a bunch of walls together and you have a house. You have a home. So productivity I would like for you to start thinking about it in these terms as an emergent thing that comes when you bring things together, as opposed to this idea of like you like charging through like every day and like forcing against yourself. And you'll find it's just such a validating way to consider it. It's much more respectful to ourselves. It's a more respectful way of thinking about ourselves and speaking to ourselves and communicating with ourselves. And there's also this importance and priority that's placed on harmony, on inner harmony. And if we're to move into the upper echelons of our potential of what's possible for us, it's only possible when we focus on harmony. So having a sense of friendship between the different elements of ourselves. If there's a part of you, for example, that wants to like watch a lot of YouTube videos, like presumably what you're doing now, and playing video games or eat chocolate, it's like instead of demonizing that part of yourself, what we want to do is we want to incorporate those elements of ourselves and let there be a time and a place for everything so that we can take care of all of our needs and stop playing this kind of like child and adult kind of back and forth game with ourselves. So we want to find a time and a place for all of the different aspects of ourselves. And we want to extend friendship and harmony to all the different aspects of ourselves and extend a basic invitation to all of the aspects of ourselves to come together, to work together like a gearbox. And then through that harmony, we can move into higher productivity. So as I mentioned, I have a list of 5 things. And so the order that I'm going to give them to you in is moving from inner sort of psychological stuff to external objective behavioral level stuff. So I'm going to moving from the inner game to the outer game as we speak in that direction. And I want to be clear also that this is not an exhaustive list. This is not like all there is, and there's nothing about it where it's like these are the 5 things. Like there can't be like 4 or 6 or whatever. I was literally just making a list of like, if I were to think of like the 5 things that must be in place if you were to move into high level productivity, what would definitely need to be there? And it's definitely these 5 things. But you're totally invited to take this material and run with it and develop it and add to it and customize it. It's totally yours to play with. It's open source. So that's something to be aware of as we go into this. So here they are. So I'll list all 5 and I'll get into them. So number 1 is to find and establish psychological enoughness. This is going to be very important in order to be at center and kind of be able to be clear. Number 2 is to clear the friction that we have around a particular thing. So if there's something that you have to do, but there's friction, like you don't want to do it, we have to clear up that friction. Number 3 is to engage in self-leadership. So self-leadership meaning have a moment of wisdom where you're figuring out what to do and then executing that and then setting yourself up so that you execute it. Number 4 is to get excellent habits online. So, choose the habits that you should be doing, get them online. And then finally, number 5 is to operate from the flow state. So here we go. Number 1 then is achieve psychological enoughness. And so what it means is this, is that whatever it is that brings you to watch a video like this, and whatever it is that you're attempting to learn from this video, and whatever it is that you hope to accomplish with what you're learning from this video, that whatever that is, that you go after it, and even if it's with great energy and great intensity and great desire, that at the very, very bottom of it, you hold an understanding that whatever it is that you accomplish in this life, it will not complete you as a person. And the reason why it won't complete you as a person is because you're not incomplete. You are already whole, and there's nothing about you that needs correction. There's no lack about you that needs to be fulfilled, and there's nothing about you that requires redemption or fixing or to be made up for or to be repaid. You yourself are already complete as a human being. But the problem is that if you believe that you need to arrive at some level of achievement in order to feel good about yourself, then you're at this point chasing your own self-esteem, you're chasing your own wellness into something in the future, and that creates a sense of desperation and neediness and heaviness behind what you're doing. And then through that heaviness, there's a sense of trying to beat time, trying to beat the clock. There's a sense of constantly running out of time, and a sort of an underlying anxiety underneath the entire thing. And this makes it very difficult, if not impossible, to step into the higher echelons of productivity. True productivity comes from finding your enoughness and immersing yourself in it, and knowing that just like any other video game that you might play, like whether it's, say Grand Theft Auto or Breath of the Wild, which I'm now really enjoying lately, it's here for you to enjoy and to immerse yourself in and play with abandon. But there's ultimately a deep meaninglessness underneath all of it that it's all there for you to enjoy and to find fulfillment with, but it's just activity. And all of the meaning is located inside of you. So this can be difficult, but if you take some time to make sure that you are centered in your own enoughness, then it will allow you to achieve a little bit more lightness and levity. And through that lightness, you'll be able to access more of your creativity, more of your creative power. So that's number one. Number two is to clear, so enoughness is kind of on a more personal global level. So now number two is to clear friction around a particular activity. So what activity do you have to do? Are you working for a job, a company, a corporation where you have work that you have to do and you just hate it, but you have to do it? Are you a self-employed professional where, there's aspects of your job that you love, but there's other aspects that you just really dislike? For a lot of us, there are things that we just have to do. Could be even a chore around the house where we have to do it, like nobody else is going to do it. We have to do it. And we're against it. It's every time it comes around, I don't want to do it. I hate doing this. I wish I could be done it. I wish I could get somebody else to do it for me. I really don't like it. So in order to allow productivity to emerge in your life, it becomes important to look at the tasks that you have to do and extend a willingness to them. So extend a green light to them, a sense of allowance. So say if it's something like changing the garbage, or taking out the garbage in your house, and you have to handle garbage and you hate it, and it's not nice, or you have to scoop cat litter or something. It's not that you have to convince yourself that you like it if you don't like it. And it's not that you have to convince yourself that you want to do it or that you're happy to do it, or or to shove some sort of opinion in your, down your own throat, yay, I love taking out the garbage. We're not going to do any form of denial here at all. But what you can do is you can switch your unwillingness to a willingness, where it's despite the fact that I dislike this task and I don't want to do it and I just want to be done with it, despite all of that, seeing as this is for me to do right now, I'm willing to do it. And in a way, I choose it. I'm willing to do it and I choose to do it. And it's through extending that this is a movement into harmony here with your task, because you're allowing your conflict with this task to fade away, and it's instead replaced with a sense of cooperation with life. And then through it you can find some peace and some centeredness as you do it, and then perhaps even flow, which we'll be getting into in number 5. So number 3 is engage in self-leadership. So self-leadership means that you want to have a period of time at some point, whether it's at the end of the day, the beginning of the day, the end of the week, the beginning of the week, somewhere in between, that there be some period of time where you choose what you're going to do with your free time, if you have a free hour or a free day. And the reason why this is important is because if we don't have a moment of leadership in our lives, then we're not choosing our highest priority stuff. We're not thinking about what we ought to be doing, and then we just go through the week on default. We just put out fires, we just do what we have to do, we just keep the boat floating, we keep everything going, but we're not actually thinking about what we ought to be doing in order to grow the operation and make this into something even bigger and better. So what we want to do is we want to have a connection between the leadership moments, the moments where we are wisest and we can see further into the future, and these moments when we have free time where we might just default to either wasting time or doing something that is just a task, like answering email, where we're not necessarily being creative and pushing the operation forward. So the antidote to this one is to make sure that you have a time at least once per week where you think, okay, like when I have some free time, I'm gonna do this. And choose a task that's juicy and high priority, where if you were to do it, it would make you feel creative, it would feel productive, and then make sure that you set a time in the calendar to actually do it. And when the time comes around, actually make sure that you do it. You can see when we talked earlier about the communication between these two different parts of yourself, this is what we're talking about. The part of you that has an imagination and a vision, and the part of you that actually works and does it. We want to make these guys talk. This is a very, very core element of productivity as an emergent quality in life. Number 4 is to get excellent habits online. So, forgive me for overstating the obvious, but do you have exercise in your life? Are you regularly exercising? Whether it's weightlifting, cardio, yoga, whatever it is, are you making sure to have exercise as a regular thing that you do? How's your consumption? Are you making sure to consume in a healthy way? Are you consuming healthy foods that nourish your body? Are you drinking too much? Are you smoking? Are you taking too many drugs? So whatever that is, if you believe that you can allow productivity to emerge as a quality in your life, and also have these habits, this is delusion. This is not true. You can still get stuff done, but productivity emerges despite bad habits. So if you're like drinking every night, yeah, you can still get stuff done and still be productive, but it's a diminished form of productivity. It's productivity in spite of what you're doing. And if it's your desire to actualize your potential and be the best that you can be, then we want to remove as many hindrances as we can. So having good, healthy habits, a good meditation habit, this is a good time to think like, what sort of habits can I put in place that will encourage more productivity as an emergent quality? If you find that your habits are really out of whack, then I suggest not doing everything all at once, but just putting things in place one at a time so you can do it in a sustainable way. Sustainability being the name of the game here. So that's number 4. And then number 5, finally, is operate from the flow state. And so the flow state, we touched on this when we're talking about friction, but a more deeper idea behind flow state is to really emphasize doing things that make you feel creative and happy. For example, doing these videos for you, they're definitely challenging because I have to plan them ahead of time and I have to, practice talking with you, which I've been doing, over the last couple of years or so. It's a tricky thing, but I really like it. And when I'm not doing it, I think about making these videos for you and I want to make more and I want to make them better. I get a lot of flow out of doing this and I get a lot of flow out of my work. If you're not getting flow out of your work, then you may want to consider making some key decisions that will allow you to move in that direction, to move in the direction of what would be interesting, what would be engaging, what would feel like you're offering your greatest gifts. You're offering the very best of you to the world. Other questions would include, what have you been waiting to make? What have you been waiting to start? What have you been waiting around to getting to do in your life? So the more you can bring this flow, this quality of flow into your life, the more productivity just naturally emerges. And then keep in mind, there's just a note here about flow. It's like part of it is a willingness to find flow with the stuff that you presently have to do that maybe up until now you've been against it. But you might just simply state something like, I'm willing to find flow with this activity. I'm willing to discover flow in taking out the trash or doing this chore or doing this one task at work or interacting with this one individual that I don't like interacting with. I'm willing to discover flow in this activity. So it's that, but then it's also choosing activities that you really would have flow with as well. That's how you move the texture of your life over into one of perpetual flow state. So there you have it. Those are the 5 things. So one more time, find psychological enoughness. This is done by locating thoughts and beliefs in your head that tell you that you're not enough, recognizing bullshit as bullshit and learning to clear it. Number 2 is clear the friction that you have around any activities that are for you to do. And this is done by turning an unwillingness into a willingness. Number 3 is engage in self-leadership. So have times where you have an idea of what you're going to do when you have free time, and then put it in your calendar so that you make sure that you execute it and actually do it. Number 4 is to get good habits online, do them incrementally and slow, and then finally operate from the flow state. So take a minute to consider which of these you'd most benefit from getting online. And then as you do, you'll notice that productivity, you're not trying to be productive, you're not pushing ahead, you're not exerting yourself, it doesn't feel like effort. Productivity just becomes your life because you have these pillars in place. That's how this works. So so I'll leave you with that. I wrote down a few questions that you may want to play with just as a final thought here, which is, what aspect of my wellness am I neglecting? That's a question you can ask yourself. What do I most want to create? What would I do if I were fearless? And then finally, what would I do if I were totally free? These questions apply in particular to the last one, the flow state. So journaling out those questions, what you get from these questions, what they yield in your journaling exercises, that will lead you in the direction of flow. So let me know what you think. Please hit like on the video. I'd be so grateful. If you're interested in getting coached, you can have your first session for $5. Just send me an email letting me know you're interested, and we'll schedule something in. I got my email in the description below, and I wish you well. I wish you a great day, great week. Talk to you soon.